What if the most powerful anti-cancer compound on Earth has been sitting in your kitchen spice rack this entire time? A board-certified oncologist is stepping forward to reveal something that most medical professionals have been surprisingly slow to discuss: the full, unfiltered truth about what turmeric actually does inside a cancer cell. And what he found after years of reviewing clinical research will genuinely change the way you think about this ancient golden spice. If you've ever lost someone to cancer, if you're fighting it right now, or if you simply want to protect yourself and your family, you cannot afford to skip a single second of this video. Hit play and stay until the very end, because the most important revelation comes last. Turmeric has been used in Ayurvedic medicine for over 4,000 years, but for most of that time, Western science dismissed it as little more than a cooking ingredient, a pigment that stains your fingers and adds flavor to curry. That dismissal, it turns out, was one of the most costly oversights in modern medical history. Because buried inside that bright orange-yellow root is a molecule called curcumin, and curcumin behaves in a way that no pharmaceutical company ever anticipated. It doesn't target cancer the way a conventional drug does, hitting one pathway and hoping for the best. Instead, it simultaneously attacks cancer from multiple angles at the same time, something scientists call pleiotropic activity. In simple terms, curcumin plays chess while most cancer drugs are playing checkers. The first thing curcumin does inside the body is something researchers call apoptosis induction. Apoptosis is the process of programmed cell death. It's the body's natural way of eliminating old, damaged, or dangerous cells. Healthy cells follow this program perfectly. Cancer cells, however, have learned to switch it off. They become essentially immortal, dividing endlessly without ever triggering the self-destruct sequence that should shut them down. What curcumin does, and this is where it becomes extraordinary, is it goes directly into cancer cells and reactivates that off switch. It essentially reminds cancer cells that they're supposed to die. Studies conducted on breast cancer, colon cancer, and pancreatic cancer cell lines have shown that curcumin can trigger apoptosis in cancer cells while leaving surrounding healthy tissue completely unharmed. That selectivity is something most chemotherapy drugs simply cannot claim. But curcumin doesn't stop there. One of the most dangerous phases of cancer isn't the initial tumor, it's what happens next. Cancer becomes deadly when it spreads, a process called metastasis. For a tumor to spread, it needs to grow new blood vessels to feed itself, a process called angiogenesis. Without those blood vessels, a tumor can't grow beyond a certain tiny size. Curcumin has been shown in multiple studies to inhibit a key protein called VEGF, vascular endothelial growth factor, which is essentially the signal cancer uses to build its blood supply. By blocking VEGF, curcumin effectively cuts off the tumor's ability to feed itself and expand. It starves the cancer from the inside out. Researchers at MD Anderson Cancer Center, one of the world's most respected oncology institutions, have described curcumin's anti-angiogenic properties as remarkable and worthy of far more clinical attention than they currently receive. If what you're reading right now is making you think differently about what you put in your body, good. That's exactly the point. Share this description with someone who needs to see it, and make sure you watch the full video before drawing any conclusions, because the doctor explains the exact protocols, doses, and combinations that actually matter. Now here is where the science gets even more fascinating. Inflammation is not just a symptom of cancer. Mounting evidence suggests it is one of cancer's most reliable allies. Chronic, low-grade inflammation creates an environment in the body where cancer cells can thrive, hide from the immune system, and resist treatment. The molecule responsible for driving this kind of chronic inflammation is a signaling protein called NF-kappa B, nuclear factor kappa B. NF-kappa B acts like a master switch. When it's activated, it tells the body to keep inflammation running even when there's no real threat, and cancer cells are experts at hijacking this switch to protect themselves. Curcumin is one of the most potent natural inhibitors of NF-kappa B ever identified. It blocks this master switch directly, turning down the inflammatory environment that cancer depends on to survive. This single mechanism alone has been the subject of hundreds of peer-reviewed studies, and the results have been consistent enough that researchers are no longer asking whether it works, they're asking how to maximize it. There's another layer to this story that most people never hear about, and it has to do with something called cancer stem cells. You might be familiar with the idea that cancer can come back after treatment, sometimes years or even decades later. The reason for this devastating recurrence often lies in a tiny population of cells that survive chemotherapy and radiation by going dormant. These are cancer stem cells, and they are extraordinarily difficult to kill with conventional therapies. They're like the seeds of the cancer, the part that gets left behind after you've cut down the tree. What researchers discovered, and what makes curcumin uniquely compelling, is that it appears to target cancer stem cells directly. It interferes with specific signaling pathways, including WNT, Notch, and Hedgehog pathways, that cancer stem cells rely on to survive and self-renew. This is not something most cancer drugs are even designed to do. The implication is staggering. Curcumin may not just fight the cancer you can see, it may help prevent the cancer that comes back. The doctor in this video also addresses something that has frustrated researchers for years: bioavailability. Curcumin, for all of its extraordinary properties, has one significant weakness. When consumed on its own, the body absorbs very little of it. It metabolizes quickly and doesn't reach the bloodstream in meaningful concentrations. This is why simply sprinkling turmeric on your food, while not harmful, is unlikely to produce the therapeutic effects seen in clinical studies. But the solution, it turns out, was hiding in plain sight, and it's something that has been used in Indian cooking for thousands of years: black pepper. Specifically, a compound in black pepper called piperine increases the bioavailability of curcumin by up to 2,000%. 2,000%. That is not a typo. Additionally, because curcumin is fat-soluble, consuming it with healthy fats, olive oil, coconut oil, avocado, dramatically improves its absorption. The difference between curcumin consumed correctly and curcumin consumed carelessly is the difference between a therapeutic dose and a waste of money. Beyond black pepper and fat, researchers have now developed enhanced curcumin formulations, liposomal curcumin, curcumin nanoparticles, and phospholipid complexes that bypass the absorption problem entirely and deliver curcumin directly into the bloodstream at concentrations that were previously impossible to achieve through diet alone. These formulations are currently being studied in human clinical trials for pancreatic cancer, multiple myeloma, colorectal cancer, and prostate cancer, some of the most treatment-resistant cancers known to medicine. Early results, while not yet conclusive, have been promising enough that several major cancer research centers have expanded their curcumin research programs significantly in recent years. It would be irresponsible not to acknowledge the full picture here. Curcumin is not a cure for cancer. No responsible doctor in this video or anywhere else is making that claim. What the science does support, compellingly and increasingly, is that curcumin is a powerful biological modulator that influences multiple cancer-related pathways simultaneously, that it shows strong synergistic effects when used alongside conventional treatments, that it may reduce the side effects of chemotherapy and radiation, and that it represents one of the most promising areas of integrative oncology research in the world today. The distinction between "this cures cancer" and "this is a scientifically significant compound that oncologists should be talking about more" matters enormously. And the doctor in this video draws that line clearly and honestly. What is perhaps most remarkable about this entire story is not any single mechanism or study, it's the pattern. Across dozens of different cancer types, across hundreds of independent research institutions, across thousands of individual studies conducted over more than 3 decades, one finding keeps appearing with striking consistency. Curcumin interferes with cancer biology in meaningful, measurable ways. That kind of consistency across that volume of research is not something scientists see very often. It's the kind of signal that, if it came from a pharmaceutical compound, would already have generated billions of dollars in drug development investment. The fact that curcumin is a natural substance that cannot be patented has complicated its path through clinical development, and that is a conversation the doctor addresses with unusual candor in this video. You've come this far. Don't stop now. The most important part of this video, the specific recommendations, the dosages, the combinations, and the honest limitations the doctor lays out, that's all waiting for you. Watch the full video, leave your questions in the comments, and if this description opened your mind even a little, share it with someone whose health depends on knowing what you just read. That share might be the most important thing you do today. The ancient healers who first ground turmeric root into powder thousands of years ago didn't have electron microscopes or mass spectrometers. They didn't know what NF-kappa B was or what apoptosis meant. But they watched, they recorded, and they trusted what they saw. Modern science is now doing something remarkable. It's catching up to what they already knew. And at the intersection of ancient wisdom and cutting-edge oncology research, there is a golden compound that deserves your attention, your curiosity, and your questions. This video is where those questions begin to get real, evidence-based answers.